Welcome to Tales by Felix, where every story unlocks a new world. Remember to subscribe, like and share. Let's begin. The soft golden light from the chandelier bathed the restaurant in warmth, catching the sparkle of wine glasses and the shimmer of sequined dresses. Port Harcourt's elite always dressed to impress, and tonight was no different. I smoothed the satin folds of my emerald green gown, the one David had once called dangerously beautiful, and smiled at our friends around the table. 10 years of marriage. 10 years of building a home, a life, and, if I was honest, surviving storms. David stood, tall and poised, his tailored black suit hugging his broad shoulders. The room quieted as he raised his glass. "To my beautiful wife Chioma," he began, his voice warm and deep. "10 years ago, I married my best friend. You've been my anchor, my safe harbor, my biggest supporter." I felt my heart swell. This was the David I had fallen in love with, the man who could charm a room yet still make me feel like the only person in it. I reached for my champagne flute, my lips curving into a smile. "And," he continued, his eyes sliding to the other end of the table, "to Aisha, the best thing that ever happened to my career." The laughter that had been bubbling around the table moments before died instantly. I froze, my glass halfway to my lips. Aisha, sitting directly across from me, flashed a polite smile, but her eyes flickered with something. Something I couldn't quite name. David's gaze lingered on her just a fraction too long, his lips quirking with an intimacy that didn't belong in public. A sharp sting settled in my chest. Around us, friends shifted in their seats, pretending to sip drinks or check their phones. I forced a brittle smile, praying my voice wouldn't betray me. "To Aisha?" I asked, my tone light but laced with steel. David chuckled, brushing it off. "She's been a game changer at work, babe. Don't be jealous." Jealous? My stomach tightened. I lowered my glass without drinking. Inside, something cracked. We didn't speak on the drive home. David hummed along to the radio, oblivious to the fury simmering beside him. The moment we stepped into the house, I dropped my clutch onto the console and turned to face him. "What was that?" I demanded. He frowned. "What was what?" "That toast, David. The best thing that ever happened to my career. You said that to Aisha, not me, on our anniversary." He laughed, but it was the kind of laugh that grated against bone. "You're overreacting, Chioma. It was just a compliment." "No, David. Compliments don't make people at the table go silent. Compliments don't make your wife feel like she's invisible." His smile faltered, replaced by an impatient scowl. "You're being dramatic. Too sensitive as usual. It's exhausting." The words hit like stones. Too sensitive. I'd heard them before, always when I dared to question him. "So it's my fault," I said flatly. "Exactly," he snapped. "I can't even praise a colleague without you turning it into a soap opera. You need to grow up, Chioma." I stared at him, my chest aching. "Grow up," I whispered. "David, I've spent 10 years building you up, supporting you, standing by you. And tonight, in front of our friends, you made me feel like a placeholder." He rolled his eyes and walked into the bedroom, unbuttoning his shirt as if the conversation were over. "Go to bed, Chioma. I'm not doing this tonight." But I knew sleep wouldn't come. It was 2:17 a.m. The ceiling fan whirred above me, each rotation amplifying the silence between us. David lay on his side, snoring softly. His phone glowed faintly on the nightstand. Unlocked. I stared at it, my heart thudding. I shouldn't. I hated snooping, it made you feel small, guilty, wrong. But hadn't he already made me feel all of that? Too sensitive. The phrase pulsed in my head. My hand moved before I could stop it. I picked up the phone and opened his WhatsApp. And there she was. Aisha. Her display picture, a soft focus selfie, lips painted red, stared back at me. Tap. The first messages were harmless. Work updates, meeting schedules. Then a shift. Words dripping with familiarity, with longing. "David. Can't wait to see you without the office clothes." Aisha, you'll have to earn that. Winking face. David, I'll make it worth your while. Especially in Dubai. My blood ran cold. Dubai. He'd told me he was traveling to Abuja next month for a conference. I scrolled faster. Aisha, our spa reservation is confirmed. Couples massage. David and the ring. Aisha, you're too much. Kwame will never know. David, and Chioma. She thinks I'm going to Abuja. My fingers trembled. My vision blurred, but I kept reading. Every message a dagger. I switched to his email. Confirmations for a 5-star resort in Dubai. Jewelry receipts totaling more than half a year's rent. Photos, selfies of them together in hotel lobbies. His arm around her waist. My stomach turned. I opened my phone and began taking screenshots. Every message, every receipt, every image. By the time I was done, I had a folder full of proof. My chest felt hollow, my hands cold. David stirred, and I quickly placed the phone back. I turned away from him, clutching my own phone under the blanket like a lifeline. This wasn't just betrayal. This was planning. This was intention. And I knew I was never going to be the same again. Morning light slipped through the curtains, but it brought no warmth. David had already left for work, leaving behind the faint smell of his cologne, a scent that now made my stomach twist. I sat on the couch, phone in hand, scrolling through Aisha's Instagram. Her life was a highlight reel. Corporate events, cocktails with friends, beach vacations. Then I saw it. Pictures from a charity gala David had told me he attended alone. There he was in the background, hand on her lower back. But then, in another set of photos, there was a man beside her. Broad-shouldered, kind-eyed, in a dark suit. Tagged at Kwame Mensah official. Curiosity burned through me. I tapped his profile. He was smiling in almost every photo, often with Aisha at his side. Anniversary posts, vacation selfies, birthday dinners. The captions made me ache. To my wife, my heart. Another year with my queen. My throat tightened. This man didn't know. He thought he was safe, just like I did. And suddenly it wasn't just about me anymore. By evening, grief had cooled into something sharper, resolve. I opened my laptop and created a new Gmail account. truthwillfindyou2025@gmail.com. No personal links. No way to trace it back. I opened a new email and began attaching the screenshots. Each image felt heavier than the last, like stones in the pocket of someone drowning. Subject line: your wife and my husband. But my finger hovered over send. This was real. There'd be no undoing it. I whispered to myself, no more being too sensitive. And click. The email sent with a quiet whoosh. The rest of the evening was a blur. I made dinner, ignored David's casual chatter, and smiled just enough to keep him from asking questions. In bed, he scrolled through his phone while I stared at the ceiling. The thought of Kwame opening that email made my pulse race. Would he read it tonight? Would he even believe me? Sleep came late, and it was restless, filled with dreams of confrontation and shouting, though the faces were blurred. When I woke, there was no reply in my burner inbox. A week passed. The tension at home was suffocating, though David seemed to think we were back to normal. Then, one afternoon, my phone buzzed with a new email notification. Burner mailbox. Kwame Mensah, can we talk? My palms dampened instantly. He'd seen it. We met at a small cafe far from the city center, one of those places where no one looked twice at you. I spotted him immediately. Tall, well-dressed, but with a heaviness in his eyes. He stood as I approached. Chioma, he asked, his voice low, as if speaking too loudly would make the truth heavier. Yes. We shook hands, the gesture stiff, almost formal. Then we sat. He pulled out his phone and set it on the table. I read your email, every word. He nodded. And? His jaw tightened. And I believe you. 'Cause I've suspected something for months. Late nights, missed calls, strange explanations. But I didn't have proof until you. For a moment we just stared at each other, Two strangers connected by the same wound. "What do you want to do?" he asked finally. I leaned in, my voice steady. "I want them to face us. Together." His lips twitched in a humorless smile. "Then let's make it happen." When I got home, David was lounging on the couch, feet up, watching some mindless comedy. He looked up with a grin. "You're in a good mood," he said. I smiled, one of those slow, deliberate smiles that hide more than they reveal. "Actually, I was thinking, we should have a dinner. Just the four of us." He blinked. "Four? You, me, Aisha, and her husband, Kwame." I kept my tone light, as though it were a casual suggestion. David chuckled, rubbing his chin. "That's unexpected." I tilted my head. "Why? We're all adults. Might be nice to clear the air. Besides, I feel bad for how awkward things got the other night. I might have been a little sensitive." His face relaxed instantly. He nodded. "Yeah, I guess that could work. Show everyone we're good." "Exactly." When I walked away, I took my phone from my pocket and sent a single message to Kwame. "They'll both be here Friday. 7 p.m. Friday arrived like the final stretch of a storm. I spent the afternoon cooking David's favorite, peppered goat meat, jollof rice, and plantain fried until golden brown. The rich aromas filled the house, warm and inviting. On the table, I laid out our best china, polished until it gleamed under the chandelier. Candles flickered in tall holders. Soft high-life music floated through the air, romantic and disarming. Every detail was intentional, hospitality masking a razor's edge. I stood back, surveying my work. Perfect. At exactly 7 p.m., the doorbell rang. I opened it to find Kwame in a navy suit, crisp white shirt, and no tie. His face was calm, but his eyes told another story, sharp, unblinking. "Come in," I said, stepping aside. He glanced around the dining room, taking in the table, the candles, the food. He gave me a short nod. "They won't see this coming," he murmured. I smiled faintly. "That's the point." We sat, the tension between us like the silent hum of a charged wire. At 7:12 p.m., the bell rang again. David, smiling broadly, strode to the door. "Here they are." Aisha stepped in, her perfume announcing her before her voice did. She wore a silk cream blouse and tailored pants, her hair pulled into a sleek bun. She smiled, until her eyes fell on Kwame. Her face drained of color, her lips parting slightly. Behind her, David's confident grin faltered into something unsure. I could almost hear the click of the trap snapping shut. We sat. Plates clinked, forks scraped. The conversation was forced, shallow, about traffic, the weather, and upcoming office project. I sipped my wine slowly, then spoke, my voice light but cutting. "It's funny, isn't it, how trust can make or break a relationship? One minute you think you know someone and the next." I let the sentence trail off. David glanced at me, puzzled. "Is this about last week again?" "Just making conversation," I said with a sweet smile. "Oh, speaking of, how was Abuja?" He hesitated just for a second before replying, "Productive." I caught Kwame's faint smirk from across the table. The air was thick, ready to ignite. David reached for the peppered goat, laughing at some half-hearted joke he made about the office. Then Kwame set his fork down with deliberate slowness. He leaned back, folding his hands on the table. His gaze locked on Aisha like a searchlight. "Aisha," he began, voice calm but hard. "I'm just curious, were you in Abuja with David last month? Or were you in Dubai?" The silence was instant and suffocating. Aisha froze, her eyes darting to David, then back to Kwame. The pulse in her neck was visible. David's fork slipped from his fingers and clinked against the plate. What are you talking about?" David stammered, but the panic in his eyes betrayed him. Kwame's mouth twitched into something between a laugh and a snarl. "Don't insult me, David. I've seen the receipts, the hotel bookings, the spa reservations. I've seen everything." Aisha's lips parted as if to speak, but no words came out. David turned to me, his face a storm. "You did this." I set my glass down gently. "I didn't do anything but tell the truth. You two did the rest." For the first time in years, David had no comeback. Aisha pushed back her chair, the scrape of it loud against the tiled floor. "I'm not doing this here," she snapped, but her voice cracked on the last word. Kwame stood, towering over her. "Oh, you'll do this wherever the truth finds you." He stepped aside, gesturing toward the door. "Let's go." She shot me one last glance, a mixture of shame and venom, before brushing past him. The door closed behind them, leaving only the sound of my heartbeat and David's ragged breathing. "You ruined everything," he roared, standing so quickly his chair tipped. I didn't flinch. "No, David. You did." His shouting eventually burned out into silence. I rose without a word and walked to the bedroom. The suitcase was already in the closet, a silent companion I'd kept ready in my mind for years. I opened it and began to pack. My clothes, my essentials, nothing more. David appeared in the doorway. His anger replaced with desperation. "Yoma, please. Don't do this. We can fix it." I folded the last blouse and placed it inside. "You didn't think about fixing it when you were buying jewelry for someone else." He stepped forward, but I held up my hand. "Don't." I zipped the suitcase. The sound was final, like the closing of a chapter. Rolling it behind me, I walked past him without looking back. At the door I paused. Not to reconsider, but to breathe in the feeling of freedom that was just steps away. Outside, the night air was cool against my skin. I walked down the path, each step lighter than the last. At the gate, I stopped and turned. Not to him, but to the life I was leaving. Then I smiled. For the first time in years I felt peace. The camera in my mind would fade to black with one question hanging in the air for every viewer. If it were you, what would you have done? Then,